Hanchard and Farfrae. Meanwhile, the great corn and hay business, owned by Hanchard but now managed by Donald Farfrae, grew more and more successful. Hanchard's old system, in which everything depended on his memory and agreements were made with a word and a handshake, was swept away. Letters and columns of figures took the place of I'll do it and you shall have it. And as in all such cases of improvement, the rough friendliness of the old method disappeared, as well as all its problems. From her room, Elizabeth Jane could see the hay stores and granaries of her stepfather's business. And what went on there, she saw that Donald and Mr. Hanchard were always together. Hanchard would often put his arm across his manager's shoulders as they walked about, side by side. Sometimes she could hear Hanchard laughing at something Donald had said. The Scotsman looking quite innocent and not laughing at all. In Hanchard's somewhat lonely life, he clearly found he liked the young man's company as much as he found his business advice useful. One day, looking down at them from above, she heard the Scotsman say that their habit of walking and driving about together reduced Farfrae's value as a second pair of eyes, which should be used in places where the honor was not. Good heavens, said Hanchard, what does that matter? I like a fellow to talk to. Now come along and have something to eat with me. Don't think so much about such things, or you'll drive me crazy. Elizabeth Jane also noticed when she walked with her mother that Donald Farfrae looked at them with a curious interest. She could not understand why, particularly since it was her mother rather than herself that he looked at. She could not know that the explanation to his looking lay in the fact that he knew the history of her pale, humble mother. One day, Elizabeth Jane received a note by hand asking her to come at once to a barn on Dunover Hill. This was a place from which Hanchard was buying corn. She naturally thought the request had something to do with his business, and so she went there as quickly as she could. She found the barn quite easily. The doors were open, but there was nobody inside. She went in and waited. Presently she saw a figure approaching in her direction. It was Donald Farfrae. He looked back to the church clock of Casterbridge, which was in clear view from where he stood, and then came inside. By some strange shyness, some wish not to meet him there alone, Elizabeth Jane quickly climbed up a ladder that led to the loft above. She disappeared just in time. Farfrae advanced, imagining himself alone. Outside it had begun to rain, so the Scotsman stayed inside, patiently leaning against one of the barn posts. He too was expecting someone. Could it be herself? Elizabeth Jane wondered. If so, why? Farfrae pulled out a note. It was exactly the same as the one she had received. The situation began to be very awkward, and the longer she waited, the more awkward it became. To appear from just above his head and climb down the ladder would show she had been hiding there. That would look so very foolish that she stayed where she was. A farm machine stood close beside her, and for something to do to relieve her anxiety, she gently moved the handle. A cloud of dust flew up in her face and covered her clothes. He must have heard the sudden noise, for he looked up and then climbed the steps. "Ah, Miss Newson," he said as he saw her. "I didn't know you were there. I have kept the appointment and am at your service." "Oh, Mr. Farfrae," she said, "so have I, but I didn't know it was you who wished to see me. Otherwise, I wish to see you." "Oh, no, I'm afraid there may be a mistake." All the while they were speaking, Donald Farfrae was helping Elizabeth Jane to clean off some of the dust from her clothes. While leading her down the ladder, away from all the dust and dirt that had come flying out of the machine, "Didn't you ask me to come here? Didn't you write this?" Elizabeth Jane held out her note as she reached the bottom. "No, indeed. I would never have thought of doing such a thing. And you? You didn't ask me. This is not your writing." And he held up his note. "No, no, it is not." "Well, really, then somebody else must want to see both of us. Perhaps we should wait a little longer." Thinking this might be the case, they waited and waited. They watched the rain dripping down from the roof of the barn, but nobody came at all. "Nobody seems to be coming," said Farfrae. "It is a trick, perhaps, and if so, it is great pity to waste our time like this. I have a lot to do." "It's too bad," said Elizabeth Jane. "It's true, Miss Newson. We'll hear about this another day, I'm sure, and find out who did it. I wouldn't mind the wasted time for myself, but you, Miss Newson?" "I don't mind much," she replied. "Neither do I." Silence fell again. "I'm afraid I must go now, rain or not," said Elizabeth Jane. "Yes, but Miss Newson, you had better say nothing about this and take no notice of it. And if the person who arranged it should say anything to you, be polite to him or her. If you pretend you didn't mind it, you'll take the clever person's laugh away." He then offered to fetch an umbrella for her, but she said it wasn't necessary, stepped out and was gone. Farfrae walked out slowly after her, looking thoughtfully at her disappearing figure. He had at last noticed her simple beauty.